Hey there, fellow maker. Welcome to the shop. You've got Build today. We're hard at work getting Bender ready for Dragon Con, and it's time to animate his face. I knew I wanted to animate Bender's eyes mechanically, so I started by printing out some small scale prototypes. This was the first eye that I printed, and I tested a few things, like the print orientation. I left a flat spot here so it could be printed like that. I tested how many layers thick. This is 2 walls right here, and I decided that was just a little too flimsy, a little too thin. So this helped inform me for the next version, which looked a little bit more like this. You can see I have a more appropriately sized pupil here. This is a little bit thicker and sturdier. I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I started figuring out some of the mechanisms. This axle here goes on the inside so that his head can tip up and down, or his eye can tip up and down. Then this goes on a little platform here so that his eye can go left and right. So that's up, down, left, right on the eye, and then he has an upper eyelid. So similar to the eyeball, I made an eyelid, and that gets retained inside of this little contraption here. That gives us the up and down on the eyelid, which lives in here, which gives us the left and right on the eyelid. I want him to be angry or happy. That all fits together something like this. You can see why this is my first prototype. There we go. There, with this all together, I was able to figure out that I have all the axes of motion that I want for the eyeball and for the eyelid. And while this is obviously falling apart and not anywhere close to the final, this was enough for me to build a more functional prototype. And that's what we have here. This is my first eyeball prototype. I remodeled some of these parts to make them a little bit more robust. And then to figure out where all the servos were gonna go, I just glued some servos down to a piece of wood so that I could move them around and tweak them here in Meat Space and figure out the best place to put them when I finally do all the CAD for the final assembly. To test how this all works, I have this really cool servo tester. I can plug my servos in and rotate these knobs to test all the movement. So there's up and down on the eye and eyelid. And then if I plug in some more. Now with everything plugged in, I can test all the axes of movement. I got his eye getting angry. I can close his eye or open it and do all of the emotion that I want to do with this goofy guy. He can look left and right. He can look up and down. A few things that I realized in this version is some pieces colliding or rubbing against one another. His pupil needed to be rounded. But most importantly, I now have a pretty good idea of where all these servos need to go to make the motion happen that I want. Now I still need to figure out how to make 2 eyes do everything, but I think I got enough of it figured out that I can jump into CAD and draw a whole assembly for his eye thing and print out those parts and see how they work. After a few days of modeling and printing, I have the next set of parts, and hopefully these are pretty close to the final, at least for this version of Bender. I did have to reprint his visor here because I made some modifications to it. And then I've got a whole bunch of parts here. This is a big old plate to hold all of our servos. I have a whole new set of eyes. I printed these in a natural PLA. This will let light through in case we want to put LEDs in his eyes. Printed his eyelids in black. And then we have all of our mechanical parts. So I can start putting this whole assembly together finally and install it in him and see how it all works. Got all our mechanisms installed here, and I've got the servos installed. These are little 9-gram servos. I made sure to get ones that have metal gears in them, so they should be a little bit more robust. Should be able to handle this no problem though. The next step is to put the lever arms on the servos, and these servos came with their own dinky little ones, and I went ahead and just made my own big fellas here. Give myself just a little bit more leverage. These arms get installed right on the servo, and they're a nice tight fit. Lots of range there, and it's not running into anything else, which is really good. I can throw a screw in the top to retain that, and we'll install the rest of these. On my prototype, I connected all the servo arms to their pieces with this wire. It's a pretty stiff wire, and it worked. So I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna just use wire for this and cutting it to length. Just straighten a bit out. If I wanna connect this to that part there, I need about that much wire. And then it's just a matter of bending a way to retain it into the end here. A little hook like that means when I put it in here, that won't come out once it's attached to the other side. I just have to do the same thing over here. Where did that go? Gotta take this off, but now I can slip that on there, pop it back on, and we have our eyeball going up and down. And looks like I have a little tweaking to do. I'm gonna go in and fine tune a bunch of this. We'll get it working really nice. I've been tinkering with this for a couple of hours, and I've been learning about the little things here and there that make a big difference as far as how I can control this. It's mostly working, but I've learned some things. For example, his pupils are protruded a little bit, and the eyelids are getting stuck on them. So there's no reason why the pupils need to be protruded at all. I could just paint a square there or have it inset a little bit. So I'm probably gonna redo or reprint those eyes, but I know that now. Also, the wires that grab things like the top of the eyelid here, I realized were intersecting with the visor. So I just dremeled out a bit of a channel there. But then I realized that now I can't move that left and right very well. So I need to dremel out a little bit more of a channel. These are the tiny little things that you don't figure out or are difficult to figure out when you're working in 3D space. But once you start testing those theories in the real world, you find all the little places where there's friction. Armed with this new knowledge, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to probably print some new eyeballs. I'm not going to print a new visor. I'll just manually edit that with the rotary tool. And then I think from there, we might be at a place where we can start trying to animate this. Well, I've made even more progress, and I've got all of my stuff moving here. So this little device is a servo tester. I've got all 6 of my servos plugged in there, and the knobs just turn some of the servo a little bit. This way I can make sure the servos work and test some of the movement. Let's take a look at Bender's eyes. So we can make him, let's see, we can make him more or less angry. There we go. Less angry.
That's more angry.
More angry.
Yeah.
Very angry. The eyelids are controlled separately. Let's see, where his, there's left and right. You can look left and right.
So cool.
And then, let's see, how do I make his eyes look up and down? Again, the eyes are on separate channels. Where's the other one? Look at animated together so it doesn't look like he's losing it. But yeah, everything mostly works. It's still a little sticky in some spots, but for the most part, I think we're just about there. Now that I know everything mostly works, I can fine tune some stuff a little bit to get it working a little bit more smooth. But now that it mostly works, I can step into a little bit more of an advanced world and try and figure out how to program these servos to make combined facial expressions. And we're going to need some new hardware for that. The hardware I'm using is this little board right here. This is called a Maestro servo controller. I plugged all my servos into that, and it's plugged into the computer so we can give it a series of commands and basically animate the eyes. Here's the interface. I have these sliders I can use to move the servos, and I could manually puppet it. But also, I can save all of these as like a keyframe and set up a bunch of animations. So if I just move everything to a new position and then save a frame, you can see I already have a sequence of them laid out. If I hit play, it'll go through them at 1 second intervals. Look at that! So in order to come up with these animations, I've grabbed a bunch of clips from the show, and I can both listen to what Bender has to say.
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Very good. We can see in this clip that he's got angry eyes, and we can see that it's just over 2 seconds long. So if I make an animation where his eyes match that and it lasts for that duration, it should sync up. And we'll get to how that's all going to happen later, but for now, all I have to do is puppet my eyes here and come up with a bunch of sequences. Let's see that one more time. Ta-da! I'm so happy. Before I can sit down and do all these animations though, I should probably get caught up on Bender's head. I've been dreading having to sand it since I just did the car, but now's the time to sand and finish and paint Bender's noggin. Let's get to it. After just a few days of sanding, priming, and painting, he's all done. Well, the paint job is done anyway. I've got a nice clear protective coat on here. We should be good on the paint job. The eyes, I think, are all set. I installed a shield on the front here to block so you can't see inside. And then the whole array of servos got installed inside of the visor. So now this whole thing is one cohesive unit that can just sort of pop onto Bender's face. And there are some screws in there, and eventually that's how he'll be retained permanently. But he does kind of fit on there nice and snug, and doesn't he look dapper? Here, let's get his antenna installed. Yeah! So he certainly is looking the part. He doesn't have a mouth yet. I did print this. This is an LED panel, a flexible LED panel that I found on Amazon. Not even really sure if it's going to work, but I only have like 5 days left, so I'm going for it. This goes very snugly inside of his face here. Very snug. And eventually I will draw lines on there. This first version, his mouth is just going to pulse when he talks. It's not going to animate because, again, I only have a few days. But I really love the way this looks. I'll just have to paint the lines on there soon. So that's most of the build part of the head ready to go. I do have to figure out all the electronics, and we'll get to that. But we need to be able to attach him to the car. We need to be able to take him off from the car, and I've designed a system just for that. It starts with this base plate here. This is a piece of 2mm aluminum that I cut out on the CNC machine, and then I went and painted it black because it's going to sit down inside of the car. For Bender to spin around on here, because yes, I do want him to be able to turn his head, I found this Lazy Susan bearing on Amazon for pretty cheap, and I designed all of my parts around this. So this gets installed with a little shim, so that there's clearance for the thing to turn. Then on top of that, there is a ring gear, and this will get attached to the outer race of that bearing. And then inside of that, we have a beefy servo and a gear to drive it, and that'll rotate everything. You probably also notice that there's magnets on here. So I glued all of these magnets into both this side and the other mating side for this contraption, which looks a little bit like this. This piece locks right into this piece, and it's keyed so that we always get it, oh, very nice, right in the right spot. This way when I take Bender off and plop it back on, he'll be facing the same direction. This portion gets attached to the bottom, of Ender here. And we've got
Ender?
Ender's my cat. This part gets attached to Bender through some screws on the bottom. These are more heat set inserts, and that just gets screwed into there. So why don't I get this all put together and we'll see how it looks. That's how the base will get set in the car. It's nice and secure, and then Bender can just plop down. And if I get him on that keyed spot, like that, he's all set. That servo can just get connected to the receiver for the car, and then with the controller I can just turn his head left and right whenever I want to puppet him. You can go look at you. Look at, the vision is coming together. Like, this has been in my head for like decades, and this is it. This is what I was hoping it would look like. All right. There's still quite a bit left to be done. I'm going to get the eyes and mouth painted, and then I think the only thing left is really get all the electronics sorted. So we'll get to that in a little bit. We're in the final stretch now. There's 2.5 days to go until we fly out to Dragon Con, but everything seems to be working as intended. Here's kind of the whole system put together. The radio here for the car talks to our controller right here, and that also talks to our sort of brain. This is the Kyber control board. This is made by a bunch of droid builders. Matt Hobbs and a bunch of his pals made this thing. I bought one from him. They've been really helpful. The Kyber Control Group, they have a Facebook group and a Discord server. Whenever I hit a roadblock, they were able to help me solve it, get this whole thing working. So I showed you how the eyes, which I painted, of course, showed you how the eyes get animated earlier. So there's these sequences of animations here on the board, and the Kyber board triggers those, and it can trigger a sound and send it to this wimpy little speaker. I've got everything running off of this battery. Let's see how it works. Basically, this controller has a bunch of buttons here that will be assigned to animations and sound. And when I hit one,
Bite my shiny metal ass.
he does it, and his eyes get animated right along with it. Let's do it again.
Bite my shiny
Yeah! That's as loud as that speaker gets, so I'm going to have to probably make something louder for that. But what's important is that this is all working, and I can start making all of those animations. I'll get all of those done between now and Dragon Con. I don't have to show you all of that. Right now, I think I have enough of him put together that I can put it all in his head, and we can give him a proper test drive. so cool. So Bender is as done as he's going to get for Dragon Con this year. We fly out in like a day and a half, so I don't have time to make his mouth do anything, but I'm very okay with that. I spent a ton of time getting his eyes to work and getting the speech to work, and check it out. Ready?
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Yeah! I can even puppet him when he does that. Ready?
Bite my shiny metal ass.
I also made it so that when he steers, he faces his head towards whichever way he's steering. That's the only line I have programmed into him right now. I've got to get this video done so you can see it before Dragon Con. So I'm going to finish the video here, and then I'm going to go and program the rest of his animations. If you're at Dragon Con, please come see Bender. Come say hi. I'm really excited to put a ton of lines in here that'll be great for interactions at Dragon Con. When you get in the elevator, the door slams shut, and there's a moment of quiet, I want him to blurt out something fun and exciting for everyone to enjoy. So we're going to call it good for now, and we will revisit Bender in the future to do some upgrades and make him even more special. But I could not be happier with how he turned out today. I'm so pumped. Thank you so much for following along. This has been about a year journey. I started this when we got home from Dragon Con last year, and now it's come so far. So pumped. Thank you for watching, and a huge thank you to the members of our Extra Credit Club. You can support us here on Patreon or on YouTube. We'll have a link down below where you can help us support us and make all these wonderful videos. We have lots of plans for the future. Can't wait to share all of that creativity with you. That'll wrap it up for me in the shop today. And one more time from Bender.
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Thanks. See you in the next build.
Bite my shiny metal ass.